Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Crossing the Touchline. This time with Matt Baker from the Flyover Footy, a St. Louis City podcast. Matt, how are you?
Doing well, Ty. How are you?
It's another day in paradise. Can't complain. Ready for the first MLS matchup between these two teams on Sunday. Kickoff 7 p.m. Central Time, I believe.
Or is 6 p.m. Central.
6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Matt, just really quick, the defense of St. Louis. I was looking at the form guide yesterday for my podcast, and 1-0, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. What's that whole deal about? What's the defense like?
Defense is pretty fantastic. I'd say if there's one thing that we can hang our hat on right now for the 2025 St. Louis City side is that we are a defensively sound team, which is a pleasant surprise. I think it was like 63 goals allowed last season, 6th worst in MLS, and it had just been deteriorating over 2 years of Bradley Carnell, John Hackworth. So we bring in Olaf Melberg, brand new head coach, first time MLS head coach. And the idea is to be City 2.0. It's to take the things that we did well and then improve upon those, but then change and really fix the defensive holes. And we're seeing a little bit more of a departure from the previous St. Louis City style, where we are not as much of a high pressing team. We are not as aggressive off the ball, trying to win the ball back in our opposition half. We've been more willing to play in a mid block and even drop into a low block once we have a lead. This is a team that is staying a lot more compact and using width a lot more. So defensively, it's been, up until this Sporting KC game, it's been very sound in between the lines. We dropped back, especially in the last few games, into more of a 5-4-1, and we're using the width. We're playing tight midfield levels, and we're just not allowing high-quality shots. I was looking at some data earlier, and all 4 goals we've allowed this season have come in that 6 to 10 yard area right in front of goal. And of the great shots we've allowed, which are even closer to goal, we haven't allowed any of those. We've conceded I think 4 or 6 shots that have been really tight in goal, but we've blocked them all. And so this team doesn't allow much. They don't even allow good quality shots. And so they've had a really positive start to the season defensively. Unfortunately, that hasn't really translated, as you saw in the form guide, it hasn't translated to any semblance of an attack.
Yeah, definitely. We were talking the other night on the podcast. We're looking like maybe 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, just basing off what the form guide shows. You didn't mention a new MLS coach. How's he been turning out for you guys? Obviously, defensively sound, but
yeah.
How has he been turning out for you guys?
Yeah, and honestly, that's what he was sold on with what he was doing in Sweden. Olaf Melberg, like I said, first-time MLS head coach. He had not coached even at this level anywhere across the world yet, but he's a world-renowned center back. He was a captain for Aston Villa, captain for Sweden's national team. BFFs was Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He was a quality player. And it's translated into using that defensive mindedness as a head coach, it seems. He's clearly taken more of a departure from what we've done in the past couple of seasons. And the best that I can describe it is that he's not so much continuing what St. Louis did, but he's really taking it back to basics. The 3 center back look is a mainstay so far this season. He has not departed from that at all. And that's a holistic change for St. Louis in general. We had never really relied on a 3 center back look. And so wing backs are key to St. Louis, but he's absolutely building off the defensive structure first. He's getting things right with the ship defensively as we work on expanding and kind of teaching our players how to work in the attack in this kind of a system. The midfielders are struggling at times to connect the lines. They're struggling to complete passes upfield. The center of the field is a wasteland in a lot of ways. Last game against SKC, we were progressing the ball 88% of the time up the left channel, up the left wing. And there's a couple players that we're relying upon because injuries have also been an issue. Edu Leuven's been out with family issues on family leave. We've had issues to Thomas Totland on the right wing back side, Giannis Horn, one of our center backs. Chris Durkin is now out for an extended period of time, defensive midfielder with an MCL injury. So key players in our starting 11. At last count, it was 5 of our 11 players in an ideal 11 were hurt. We've struggled with them. And that's not even counting Roman Berkey, who won't play against Columbus as well in net. Though, honestly, that's been a surprise for me, is we've performed well with Ben Lunt in goal because of that solid defensive structure. Our backline knows what they have to do. Henry Kessler is leading that backline so well. It's just translating that into an attack that can not just create quality chances, but volume-based chances. We've had such up and down games this season where some games we're going to have like 15 or 17 shots, even though only 5 or 6 might be on target. But then other games we've had 2, 5 shots total. And that's been the point that's really weighing and wearing on the City fan base is 7 games is a long time to go with having 5 scoreless of your 7. That we're not having a successful attack that can carry forward from game to game. We had 2 really quality matches, I would say, between LA Galaxy and Seattle Sounders. But even that Sounders game, no goals in the run of play. And so we're just looking for some consistency from match to match in even being dangerous in our attack.
Speaking of goals, shutout in 3 straight matches. If I did my math correctly, 345 minutes since St. Louis has scored a goal. So on the offensive front, you're looking at the offensive front going up against a 3-back system for the Columbus Crew. What would be the bread and butter for St. Louis to get a goal against the Columbus Crew, an unbeaten Columbus Crew at that?
I mean, you don't really have to keep tacking it on. I get it. The Crew were really good this season. But no, if I had to say what I'm looking forward to, I'm looking for guys like Conrad Wallem or Celio Pompeu, wide players, especially on the left side of the field. I'm looking for those guys to get into 1v1 situations and then helping to draw attacker or draw defensive players towards them. Those are 2 of our best ball handlers on the field, and they've had a lot of success in the attacking end. Conrad Wallem in particular is a guy to watch. Number 6 for St. Louis City. First few matches he played as a left wing back. Here recently, he switched over to more of a right midfield, kind of second number 10 role on the right side, but he's so versatile. He can play all over the field, and he has absolutely developed into one of our best ball handlers. You get the ball into his feet, into his possession, or Celio Pompeu in the attacking third, and then you just let them work in 1v1s, let them try to beat players because they will more often than not. They can beat defenders 1v1, and then once they get inside, they can open up space for that final pass. I'm not looking for those 2 players necessarily to score goals themselves, but they can create so much more for others. The problem is really getting other players into the right position for them to really give service to. You've had issues where in the past against SKC last week, Marcel Hartl, arguably our best field player in all aspects of the game, had to drop back to be more of a central midfielder and play deeper because of the loss of Edu Leuven, because you're struggling to have any kind of bossing around the midfield. And so you take a player of his caliber and you remove him from the offensive end in the attacking third a little more often, you're going to struggle to have somebody who can you can deliver to from that Celio or Conrad Wallem. Also, I look for João Klaus to be a little more involved. He's had success in the limited appearances he's had, but DP number 9 for St. Louis, he hasn't honestly seemed like he's been favored by Olaf Melberg, which is kind of a concerning thing because you're struggling to figure out how best to progress this attack. Relying on 1v1s in the final third, it's not always the best course of action. It's not replicable so often. You want to have more progressive movement into the box. And João Klaus is really good with link-up play. He works well back to goal. He works to link up other players. Getting a player like him more involved in the attacking third, because the problem with St. Louis too is we have such strong wing game, but in the run of play, when we're progressing our passes, we're not filling that space centrally. We're not drawing defenders back towards goal and then filling space that we can take advantage of in that 10 to 18 yard area in the box. And so getting more attackers into the final third in general, into the attacking half in general, has to be a priority for St. Louis.
Columbus reportedly making a splash for Daniel Gazdag this week, but one player that I'm looking forward to at least starting for Columbus this weekend, former St. Louis player AZ Jackson, back home in St. Louis. How is he going to be welcome back with open arms? I would assume yes, but what was AZ like in St. Louis and just in general?
I got to smile when I think of AZ. He was dynamic at times. He only showed flashes of brilliance for St. Louis because of the amount of time he had to work with and arguably the style that he was asked to be deploying from Bradley Carnell, a style that did not want you to possess the ball. Carnell did not want AZ to have the ball at his feet for too long to create for others. He wanted you to be more direct to goal, very few touches. I would say it wasn't exactly AZ's strong point. And in the way he plays, it doesn't surprise me that he's finding more success with Columbus. And listen, I have a jersey with AZ's name on the back of it. I was devastated when we sold him because he was just coming off of a U.S. men's national team appearance in January of 2024.
Yeah.
So having that happen and then having such a fallout so quickly and selling him so I mean, it caught us all by surprise because you have a player of his age and caliber, and you're willing to sell him for, I think at the time it was 650,000 GAM plus add-ons. It was so shocking. And so to see him come back to Energizer Park now, he's going to get a standing ovation. He's going to get an applause from the crowd. That's the kind of crowd that St. Louis has. He was one of our own. We're going to be excited to see him back, though. If he scores a goal, I don't know that we're going to boo him necessarily, but I wish him success in all of his matches except for this
one. Really quick, just two more questions. Any key players that Columbus should be on the lookout for St. Louis?
Oh, I mentioned a few of them. Conrad Wallem, Marcel Hartl. In the attack, Cedric Toyshirt should be seeing a little bit more time. He struggled with a couple injuries this season. He's another 2 Bundesliga guy who came over from Hanover last season. Alongside Marcel Hartl, he was a goal-scoring fiend. So if he gets more time, if he's able to start even, that's an extra body of high quality in the attack. Simon Betcher is a player who will, honestly, Simon Betcher's best qualities is getting in behind lines on set pieces, on quick plays. He's sneaky. And so he'll get in the head of the goalkeeper. He'll try to find ways to get behind lines, and he'll just kind of fade away until you don't realize he's there, and then he strikes in for a goal. I would also look to in the midfield, you'll see guys like Alfredo Morales, who you might know, MLS veteran from NYCFC, I believe. And he's had more playing time out of necessity. So we're still going to be without Leuven and Durkin in the midfield. And then on the back line, it's Henry Kessler. Other guys might mix and match, but it's Henry Kessler who's going to cause the most consternation when it comes to the Columbus attack.
Prediction time. Matt, what do you got?
I'm always an optimist, so I'm going to go 1-0 St. Louis, and that's partly because of what you said early. St. Louis has been defensively sound. A lot of our games have been those 1-0, 0-0 draws early in the season. Columbus, though, I mean, you might have more data, and I'm sure your fans know, but you guys don't seem like a goal-scoring phenomenon right now. You had 4 against Chicago to start, but so I see these teams as really not a boring match, but a low-scoring match where there's going to be a lot of potential chances.
And that's one thing that we did touch on my podcast was none of our games have been really pretty. None of our games have not been, super outscoring. I think the biggest game that we had was a 0-0 draw against New York City, where we had 10 corners and 6-7 shots on goal in the first half and had nothing to show for it. So I do agree that this is going to be a very interesting game, low-scoring game at that, because, we still don't have a DP9 striker. But Matt, thank you so much for doing this. Where can the lovely people from Massive Report find you at?
Find me at Matt Baker STL on all the socials. I'm most active on X and Blue Sky, and then my podcast Flyover Footy. We're going to have a special episode this week previewing the Columbus Crew. So take a listen to that if you want some more longer form info on the St. Louis side, and at Flyover Footy on all the socials.
Matt, thank you again for doing this. You guys can watch St. Louis City and the Columbus Crew on MLS Season Pass Sunday at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Matt, thank you again. Stay hydrated, stay cool, stay safe. Go Crew.